Hi there, it's Claire here from the Wellness Project. Okay, so welcome to today's video where I'm talking about EFT, or Emotional Freedom Technique, or also known as the tapping technique. So I've recently read a book called The Tapping Solution by Nick Ortner, which has actually propelled me to practice EFT on a daily basis. Now, I was originally exposed to EFT or tapping through kinesiology sessions that I was going to last year. And I was going to these sessions to help clear some emotional stuff that was going on for me, but also to help relieve some back pain. And I was kind of instinctive in knowing that this back pain wasn't just physical, that there was also an emotional level to it, which was actually spot on. Having said that though, I've been practicing EFT on and off since I went to that first kinesiology session. But since reading this book, I've actually made a commitment to practicing it more often and if not daily. So what I'm trying to do now is actually include EFT into my morning routine. The meditation part of my morning routine sometimes goes really beautifully, and it's sometimes an amazing experience. Often it's a struggle, and that's okay. I don't really mind when it's a struggle because it's not always supposed to be this perfectly serene, blissed out experience where you're floating on a cloud. But sometimes it's actually such a challenge that it causes me a little bit of intensity, and by intensity I mean sometimes it actually creates a little bit of frustration and anger for me because I'm in such an uncomfortable position with it that it's not really nourishing or nurturing me. So what I've found with EFT is when practiced in the morning just before a meditation session, and just a really short EFT session, I find that I'm a little bit more open and a little bit softer to be able to enter my meditation. That doesn't necessarily mean that my meditation is then flawless after that. And as I said, sometimes I don't mind when it's not flawless because I get some really interesting, creative, juicy moments come about because of those unflawless meditation moments. It just means that I'm struggling a little bit less. So for me, on a personal level, that's why EFT has come about in my life. But also because the more I practice it, the more I find I'm really starting to clear this long-term back injury that I've had, and also starting to let go of some of these limiting beliefs, thoughts and feelings that come up for me that actually are exactly that. They're limiting and they've got no place in my day or in my life. They don't serve me in any way, and they just hold me back from what I'm trying to achieve with my life and just having a great day on a very base level. So what I'm going to teach you today is a really simple technique that I've learned from my own research, but also from this book, The Tapping Solution. So feel free to go out and get it. I've got mine on my iPad. But the technique is universal and anybody can teach it and anybody can do it. And Nick Ortner in the book actually invites you, once you've learnt this technique, to go and teach it to somebody else. That's how simple and amazing this is. So just in a nutshell, we're going to start with something called an MPI, which is your most pressing issue. Then we'll go into setting up a statement around that issue, and then we'll move into the tapping technique. And I'm just going to quickly summarize for you the points that we're going to tap. So we use our fingers to first, after tapping here on our hand, which is our setup statement, to first tap on the inner eyebrow, just at that brow bone, to the outer eyebrow bone, just underneath the eye, also on that bone, the top lip, the chin kind of in that crease, the collarbone, the underarm, that it palms width below from the armpit, and the crown of the head, just in the center there. Now it's important here to know you don't need to choose one side or the other, it doesn't really matter. So the meridian system that's connected with this tapping technique is equal on both sides. So they all kind of have a point on either side of your body. So you don't actually need to do both sides or have a preference. And the other thing to note here is you don't need to be tapping for hours and hours and hours, but there is about a particular count, maybe 5 to 7 for each point as you repeat the statements. Okay, so we're going to get going. Now the first thing to do is to switch into our most pressing issue, or our MPI, as Nick Ortner explains it. So what I'd like you to do is close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath in, and a long exhale out. And take your attention down into your heart. And without trying to formulate a response, just see if you can connect in there for a moment and allow your body and your mind and your heart to send you what it most needs attention on. So what's your most pressing issue? Right now it could be that you're feeling quite stressed and overwhelmed. Maybe there's lots of pressure at work. Maybe something's going on with a relationship and that's making you feel really unhappy and maybe a bit sick in your stomach. Maybe it's a physical issue, maybe you're really run down, or maybe like me, you've got some sort of injury that's lingering and has become chronic. So just let that issue come to mind, and then take a moment here to rate that issue on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 obviously being the worst and 1 not so bad. 1's pretty good actually. And once you have a rating, just be mindful here that we're trying to work on things that are at least 5 and above. That just gives us a chance to be able to systematically work our way down and clear something that's quite heavy and quite powerful within the mind and the body. So now that we've got the most pressing issue, what we need to do is come to a setup statement. And that setup statement is going to be the statement where you announce to your body and to your mind that this is what's going on with you. And then from there, we'll move into little reminder phrases that you say as you tap throughout the system. So the setup statement, for example, if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, would be, even though I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. So we're going to repeat that phrase 3 times whilst tapping on the first point, which is the karate chop point. So you can follow along with me, tapping and repeating the phrase straight after I say it. Okay, so we'll begin. Even though I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm feeling completely stressed and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely accept myself. So now we move on, tapping throughout the rest of the body. And we just say one particular phrase at each point that reminds our body and our mind to come back to that initial MPI and setup statement. So starting here at the inner eyebrow, I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed. This feeling I have inside me. It's so stressful. My life is so stressful right now. It makes me feel overwhelmed. I'm feeling stressed and I don't like feeling like this. So stressed, so overwhelmed, there's so much pressure. I wish I didn't feel this stressed and overwhelmed right now. It's hard for me to do my job if I'm feeling like this. And then you just take your hands down. Repeat that quite a few times. I like to go for between 5 and 10 minutes depending on the issue. And at the end, or every so 5 sessions every now and then, you can actually just take a deep breath, check in with yourself again, and just re-rate how you're feeling about that issue. So you might find that you drop down. You might find that you come down from 7 to 6, or maybe you take a bigger jump than that. So obviously the longer that you work on it, or the deeper the issue, the more results that you're going to get. So that's, in a nutshell, the EFT technique, and it's super simple. You can practice it at any time, especially if you're sitting at your desk right now and you're thinking, wow, okay, this sounds really interesting and I'm feeling quite stressed. Take yourself up, go to the bathroom or maybe outside, and sit down and just run through that technique, remembering to start with your MPI and remembering to do a setup statement and to repeat the reminder phrase throughout each tapping section so that you're sending that message back into your body. Now, if you're sitting here wondering why we're talking about a negative statement when we're trying to actually manifest positive in our life, head over to the blog where I explain in detail on a scientific level what's actually happening with the brain and what's happening with the tapping that actually it takes that trigger out of your body and steps you away from fight or flight mode and steps you away from the stress response, which then actually helps us to deactivate a lot of the stuff emotionally and physically that's going on. So if, like me, you're feeling like you need to let go of some stuff and you need to move forward, or you feel held back for some particular reason, and I definitely think this EFT technique is going to be an amazing one for you. And from everything that I've read and everything I've studied about this, the people that are madly in love with this technique have had some really dramatic changes and being able to move forward quite far in their lives. But it's also something that they maintain on a regular basis. It's easy, it doesn't cost anything. You can teach anyone else in your life now as well, which is super exciting. It means that you don't have to keep this to yourself and worry whether you know enough. Right now, you definitely know enough to be able to share it. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your experiences with this and how you found it, or just your opinion of it. And maybe some of you are already regular tappers, and I'd love to hear your experiences and how it's changed your life. So thank you so much for listening. It's been such a pleasure chatting to you, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.